"Daniel, stop." Her voice cracks through the tension like glass shattering on marble. But he doesn't stop, he just looks at her, jaw tight, eyes burning with something between regret and need. The rain outside pounds against the glass walls of the penthouse, but inside, the silence between them is louder than thunder. Lily can feel her heart fighting against her ribs. Just a few months ago, this man was her boss's son, cold, unreadable, completely off limits. Now, he's standing a few feet away, confessing something that shouldn't even exist between them. It started with a job, just a tutoring gig. She was supposed to help Daniel Graves, heir to Graves Industries, prepare for his final board qualification, his father's last test, before handing him control of the empire. Lily was the girl who worked 3 jobs to keep her scholarship. She didn't belong in a world of billionaires and glass towers, but the offer was impossible to refuse. Triple her usual pay, and all she had to do was teach him business analytics. That's what she told herself when she first walked into his world, that it was just a job, that she could keep her distance. But Daniel wasn't what she expected. The first day he arrived late, disheveled, irritated that his father had hired someone to babysit his grades. He barely looked at her when she tried to start the session. And yet, beneath the arrogance, there was something off, something broken. He asked questions that weren't about the syllabus. Why do you work so hard? What happens if you fail? Those weren't questions of a billionaire's son. They were questions of someone who didn't know who he was without pressure. Lily answered, trying not to care, but she did. By the 3rd week, the lessons had stopped being lessons. They became arguments that lasted hours, debates that bled into laughter, and laughter that turned into silence that lingered too long. Daniel began showing up early. He'd make coffee for her before she arrived. He'd ask about her day before opening his laptop. Somewhere between teaching him profit margins and growth models, she realized he listened differently, like he was memorizing her voice, and she hated that she noticed. Then came the night of the gala. She wasn't invited, just working behind the scenes as a temporary staff assistant, helping with presentation slides. Daniel found her there, tucked away in the control room, fixing a glitch minutes before his father's keynote. He asked why she was hiding. She said she wasn't. He smiled, that sharp kind of smile that meant he already knew the truth. Then, without warning, he told her she looked like she didn't belong there, and somehow made it sound like a compliment. "You look like you're meant for something real," he said, before walking out to face hundreds of investors. After that, nothing felt the same. He started texting her outside work. At first, it was about study schedules. Then it wasn't. "Do you ever stop thinking?" he asked one night at 2 a.m. "Only when I talk to you," she replied before she could stop herself. It was the beginning of a line she didn't know she was crossing. He showed up the next morning with her favorite coffee, remembered how she liked it black, no sugar, extra strong. "For someone who never sleeps," he said. She laughed, and he watched her too long. The rumors began soon after. Whispers among staff, looks from the other tutors. His father noticed. One evening, Lily was called to Mr. Graves's office. He didn't waste time. "Whatever's happening between you and my son ends now," he said. "You were hired to teach him, not to distract him." Lily wanted to defend herself, but there was no point. He'd already made up his mind. She left that office shaken, realizing the world she'd stepped into had rules she'd never agreed to but would always have to follow. She tried to quit the next day. Daniel wouldn't let her. He showed up at her apartment, soaked from the rain, furious. "You don't get to walk away," he said. She told him he didn't own her. He said, quietly, "Then why does it feel like I'm losing something that's mine?" She should have slammed the door. Instead, she let him in. That night, everything shifted. Not because they kissed, they didn't, but because for the first time, Daniel told her the truth. About his mother's death. About how his father had turned love into leverage. About how the Graves empire wasn't built on power, but control. He said he didn't want to become like his father, and for some reason, he said it to her. Lily listened. That was the moment she knew he didn't need a tutor. He needed someone who saw him as human, and she hated that she was becoming that person. Now, standing in his penthouse weeks later, everything is spiraling. Daniel's father has found out about their relationship, even though neither of them can define what it is. Lily's job is over. Her reputation ruined. His father gave him a choice, the company or her. Daniel didn't choose fast enough, so Lily chose for him. She packed her things and disappeared before sunrise. But tonight, he found her again, standing at her door, saying her name like it was the only thing he had left. "Lily," he says now, his voice rough. "You think you can walk away like this?" "I have to," she whispers. He takes a step closer, rainwater still dripping from his hair. "You don't get it, do you? I've already made my choice." Her breath catches. She wants to ask what he means, but before she can, he pulls something from his pocket, a small velvet box, soaked, but still sealed. The look on his face isn't desperation, it's conviction. "You were just supposed to teach me," he says, voice breaking. "But you ended up being the only thing I ever learned that mattered." She stares at him, trembling. "Daniel, this isn't how it works." He shakes his head. "It's the only way it works." And before she can step back, he drops the box on the glass table between them. Inside, a ring glints under the city lights. Her pulse stops. Her world shifts. And for the first time, she doesn't know whether to run or stay. The ring between them feels heavier than it should. Lily can't look at it too long. It's too real, too final, too impossible. The city outside glows with the blur of headlights and rain, but inside the penthouse, everything slows. Daniel's hand is still shaking slightly, and she can tell if it's from the cold or from what he's just done. "You don't even know what you're asking," she says, her voice trembling but steady enough to sound strong. He takes a step closer, eyes locked on hers. "I'm asking you not to disappear again." She wants to believe him, but every memory of his father's warning echoes in her mind. People like her don't get to stay in their world. They're just visitors. The Graves family doesn't marry outsiders. They manage them, replace them, erase them. This isn't love, Daniel, she finally says. This is guilt, rebellion. You're just trying to prove you're not your father. His expression doesn't change, but his silence says everything. Then, slowly, he replies, "Maybe I am, but you're still the only person who makes me want to be better." She should leave right now, but she can't. Not when his voice breaks like that. Not when the man who never lets anyone in is standing there, unraveling for her. The air between them tightens, charged, fragile, and alive. When she finally speaks, it's barely a whisper. "You don't need me, Daniel. You need to fix your life." He shakes his head. "You are my life." And she hates how much it hurts to hear that. For days after that night, she tries to disappear again, changing her number, quitting her teaching assistant position, moving to a smaller apartment on the edge of the city. She thinks she's safe in anonymity, but the world Daniel lives in doesn't let people vanish quietly. One morning, she wakes up to her phone buzzing non-stop. Notifications, messages, photos. The news has already broken. Billionaire heirs, secret romance with former tutor. Her name is trending. Her face is on gossip sites she's never even heard of, and with every headline, her stomach twists tighter. Daniel hasn't said a word publicly, but that's almost worse. The silence feels like a decision. She's waiting for a statement, some denial, some distance, something that would tell her this was just a temporary mistake. But then, late that night, a video surfaces. Daniel standing outside Graves Tower, reporters crowding around him. A journalist asks if the rumors are true, and instead of dodging, he looks straight at the cameras and says, "Yes, and if anyone has a problem with who I love, they can take it up with me." The internet explodes. The company's stocks dip. Graves Industries issues a neutral clarification, and Daniel's father calls an emergency board meeting. Lily sees the footage online and feels her throat close. She didn't ask for this. She didn't want to be a headline. But now she's the story everyone wants to tell. A knock at her door that same night makes her jump. She almost doesn't open it, but when she does, Daniel is standing there again, exhausted but defiant. "I told them," he says simply. "Everything." She stares at him, unable to breathe. "Why would you do that?" He steps inside, closes the door quietly. "Because hiding you felt like lying about my entire life." His words land like an anchor. She should be angry, but part of her feels something she hasn't in weeks seen. But the world outside isn't ready to forgive either of them. By the next morning, her university threatens to suspend her pending an ethics review. The tutoring agency drops her contract. Anonymous numbers start calling, some offering money for her story, others just spewing hate. She tries to block them, but it doesn't stop. Every new message reminds her that she's no longer just Lily, the girl who studied too hard and dreamed too small. She's now the girl who caught a billionaire. Daniel tries to shield her from it all. He hires security. He sets up a private lawyer. He tells her they'll fix it. But Lily knows what that means. Healed by silence. Control the story. Erase the chaos with power. And that's exactly what she's afraid of. "This isn't how you fix things," she tells him. "You don't get to use your money to make my life disappear." He looks at her, frustrated. "I'm trying to protect you," she answers. "No, you're trying to own the damage." The argument stretches for hours. By dawn, both are too tired to keep fighting. Daniel sits on the floor beside her, head in his hands, whispering, "I'm losing everything for you." And Lily, her eyes wet but unbroken, whispers back, "Then don't lose yourself in the process." He looks at her like she's the only truth left in his world. For the first time, he says nothing, just reaches out, and she lets his fingers find hers barely, like a truce that could collapse with one wrong move. Days blur into weeks. The media frenzy quiets, but not completely. Daniel's father cuts him off from all company matters. The board votes to temporarily suspend his authority. He's out, just like that. And yet, for the first time, Daniel seems lighter. He starts showing up at Lily's apartment, not with apologies, but groceries. He cooks. He burns the first few attempts. She laughs. Slowly, life begins to look almost normal. They talk about everything except the ring still sitting on her shelf, untouched. Then one night, Daniel finds it again. He picks it up, running his thumb over the velvet box. "Do you still think it's a mistake?" he asks quietly. She hesitates. "I think love isn't supposed to cost this much." He nods, sets it down gently, and says, "Then I'll spend my life making sure it doesn't." For a moment, everything feels still safe, even but the world doesn't stay still for long. A week later, Daniel receives a call that changes everything. His father has fallen ill, a heart attack. Graves Tower is in crisis. The board is split. The empire he walked away from is calling him back. And for the first time, Lily sees fear in his eyes, not of losing power, but of losing her again. He tells her he has to go back, at least temporarily. "If I don't, they'll destroy everything." She nods, pretending to be strong. "Then go. Just don't forget why you left." He promises he won't. But promises, she's learned, are easy in the dark. It's daylight that tests them. When he returns to the tower, everything feels like déjà vu. The suits, the cameras, the watchful eyes, all waiting to see if he'll fail. His father's office smells the same, sterile and sharp. Daniel takes the chair, just for a moment, and realizes how easily the world tries to make him its reflection. He almost texts Lily to tell her that. Almost. But then the door opens. And his father, frail, pale, but still terrifying, whispers, "You think love makes you free? It makes you weak." Daniel doesn't respond. He just stares, realizing that every war he's ever fought has been against this voice. That night, he doesn't go home. Not to Lily. Not anywhere. Just stays in the office, staring at the city his family owns, wondering if love and legacy can ever coexist. His phone buzzes. A message from her. Just 3 words. "Don't lose us." He closes his eyes, and for the first time in his life, he prays that love is stronger than inheritance. When Daniel finally walks back into her apartment 3 days later, Lily doesn't recognize him at first. He looks like a version of himself she thought he'd buried. Sharp suit, tired eyes, the weight of the Graves legacy sitting heavy on his shoulders. He doesn't speak at first. He just stands there, watching her, as if memorizing what peace looks like before he loses it again. "You didn't call," she says quietly. "I didn't know what to say," he replies. She crosses her arms. "Then say anything, just don't vanish like everyone else in your world does." He exhales, running a hand through his hair. "You were right," he says. "They don't want me to change anything, they just want me to be him." She doesn't need to ask who him is. "Then don't," she says softly. But he laughs under his breath, bitterly. "It's not that simple. The moment I walked in, the board made it clear. Either I stabilize the company or I lose everything my mother built." Lily steps closer, searching his face. "And what about us?" Daniel looks up at her then, and for a moment, all the armor drops. "You're the only thing keeping me from becoming what they want." It's the kind of confession that should sound romantic, but all she hears is pressure. All she feels is the fear that she's turning into another battle he'll eventually lose. The next few weeks blur into chaos. Daniel throws himself into the company's recovery while the media feeds on every rumor about them. Business channels call him unstable. Social networks twist every photo of Lily into a narrative about manipulation, ambition, scandal. She tries to ignore it, to live quietly, but the noise gets louder every day. And then, one morning, her mailbox is full of printed articles. Someone has found her address, her name, her face, her pastel, exposed. She panics. Daniel rushes to her side, furious, vowing to end it. She pleads with him not to. "Please, Daniel, don't make this worse." But he doesn't listen. That night, he storms into a press conference uninvited. Cameras flash, security stumbles, and Daniel Graves stands in front of the world again, this time. Not as a corporate heir, but as a man defending the woman he loves. "You can write whatever you want about me," he says into the microphones. "But if you come for her, I'll bury your stories with truth." The crowd erupts. The headlines explode, and by the next morning, his father's empire has never looked more unstable. Lily watches the coverage in silence. Half of her wants to run, half of her wants to hold him. Because for every brave word he speaks, another consequence follows. Investors withdraw, partners hesitate, and yet, Daniel doesn't regret it. "Let them walk away," he says. "I'll rebuild everything from the ground up if I have to." She stares at him, her heart aching. "And when you do, will there still be room for me in it?" He doesn't answer right away. Instead, he takes her hand and pulls her close. "You're the only reason I even want to rebuild." It sounds beautiful until reality hits. The Graves' fortune is bleeding. The board moves to replace Daniel, and his father, still recovering but as ruthless as ever, summons him for one last confrontation. Lily begs him not to go alone, but Daniel insists. "This is between me and him." When he walks into that office, it feels like walking into a war zone made of silence. His father's voice, though weak, still cuts like a knife. "You've embarrassed this family. You've destroyed everything I spent my life creating." Daniel stands tall. "You built it on control. I'm not living like that." His father sneers. "And what will you live on? Love. That girl won't survive this world, and when she breaks, she'll take you with her." Daniel steps forward. "Then I'll fall with her. At least I'll know I didn't trade myself for your throne." The older man's eyes narrow. "You'll come crawling back. You always do." But this time, Daniel doesn't. He walks out, leaving the office door wide open behind him, the first open door in Graves Tower's history. That night, he finds Lily on the rooftop of her building, sitting under the city lights, hair pulled up, knees tucked in, lost in thought. "You look like someone who's finally realizing how big the world is," he says softly. She turns, surprised, and then smiles faintly. "You look like someone who just burned his bridges." He shrugs. "Maybe some bridges deserve fire." She laughs, but there's sadness in it. "So what now?" she asks. He takes a deep breath. "Now we build something of our own," and he means it. He sells his shares, cuts ties with the company, and uses his inheritance to start a foundation instead of scholarship fund for underprivileged students. Lily helps him design it. Together, they build something new, something that actually feels good. For the first time, Daniel isn't fighting for approval. He's building a life, and for a while, it's perfect. But perfection never lasts. not when the past has power. One evening, Daniel receives a letter hand-delivered, unsigned, but sealed with the grave's insignia. Inside is a single sheet of paper, a legal notice. His father's lawyers are moving to freeze his remaining assets, claiming breach of fiduciary duty. The message is clear. He may have walked away, but his father is still playing the game. Lily sees the shift in him instantly, the quiet tension in his jaw, the late-night calls, the way his hands tremble when he thinks she isn't watching. He tells her it's fine, that it's just business, but she knows it isn't. It's the war all over again, dragging him back. "You can't fight him forever," she says one night. "Then I'll fight until he stops breathing," Daniel replies without hesitation. That when she realizes how deep the cycle runs, how even love can save someone who hasn't forgiven himself. The next morning, she wakes up to find him gone. His phone is on the table, the ring box is missing, and a single note rests beside her coffee cup. "Don't wait for me, I'll fix this." Lily's chest tightens. She knows where he's gone. Back to the tower, back to his father, back to the empire that keeps devouring him. She grabs her coat and runs out into the storm, the city lights blurring through the rain as she tries to find him. When she finally reaches the building, the lobby is chaos. Reporters, security, flashing lights. Someone says there's a confrontation on the top floor. She doesn't wait for permission, she bolts into the elevator, slamming the button for the top. Her reflection in the mirrored walls looks like a stranger. Wet hair, shaking hands, eyes full of fear. But she doesn't stop. The doors open. The office is half lit. Daniel is standing by the window, his father seated across the room, looking older, weaker but still dangerous. "You think you can destroy me?" his father spits. "You already destroyed yourself." Daniel's voice breaks as he yells back, "At least I did it for something real." Lily steps inside, voice trembling. "Daniel, stop, please." Both men turn for a moment. Time freezes the air in the tutor, the father and the son. 3 lives tangled in love and power. And then Daniel says it, the one thing that changes everything. "I'm done fighting you. You can have the company, the name, the money, but you'll never have what I have right now." He turns to Lily. His father laughs bitterly. "You think love will save you?" Daniel shakes his head. It already did. He takes Lily's hand, leads her toward the door, and this time he doesn't look back. But as they step into the hallway, something unexpected happens. The old man calls after him, not in anger, but something closer to regret. "Daniel," his voice cracks, "don't make the same mistake I did." The elevator doors close before either can respond. The world outside the grave's tower feels strangely quiet after what just happened. Rain has stopped, but the air still smells of lightning like the city itself is holding its breath. Daniel doesn't say a word as they walk down the street. Lily's hand is in his, but it feels like he's somewhere else entirely, lost between relief and something darker. When they finally reach her apartment, she turns to him. "What did he mean?" she asks softly. Daniel shakes his head. "It doesn't matter." But it doesn't. She knows it. Because when an empire like Graves breaks, it never does so quietly. The next morning, she wakes up to find Daniel gone again. But this time, he's left something behind. A signed letter of resignation sent to every board member. No headlines, no press statements. Just one line at the bottom. "I'd rather lose a crown than lose myself." The story spreads anyway, of course. Media outlets call it the fall of a dynasty. But to Lily, it feels like something more personal, the beginning of peace. For the first time in months, Daniel seems lighter. He spends days with her at the foundation office, helping design new programs, smiling like the weight of his name finally means nothing. He cooks, he laughs, he plans things that don't involve legacy or stock prices. It's the version of him she always knew existed beneath the chaos. But even peace has its shadows. One afternoon, while sorting through files, Lily finds an envelope addressed to Daniel, no return name, no stamp. Inside, a medical report. Her heart drops. It's his father's diagnosis. Terminal, stage 4. She stares at it, frozen, realizing this isn't just business or pride anymore. It's goodbye. When Daniel returns later, she doesn't know how to tell him. He senses something's wrong instantly. What happened? He asks. She hesitates, then hands him the paper. His hands tremble as he reads. His eyes stay dry, but his jaw clenches. He didn't tell me, he murmurs. Of course he didn't, she says gently. He doesn't know how to. That night, Daniel sits alone on the balcony. The city stretched beneath him like 1,000 unspoken apologies. Lily joins him, resting her head on his shoulder. You don't have to go, she whispers. He shakes his head. Yes, I do. Because if I don't, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. He visits his father the next day. The old man is weaker than he remembered, lying in the same office where every fight began. For a long time, neither speaks. Then his father says, voice barely above a whisper, you think walking away made you free? It just made you like me alone. Daniel swallows hard. Then maybe that's something I can still change. His father looks at him, eyes softer than they've ever been. You already did. They sit in silence after that. For once, there's no anger left to burn. Just two men finally realizing that love was never their weakness. Sit was the one thing they never learned to handle. When Daniel leaves the room, there's no victory, no surrender, just closure. Back at the apartment, Lily can feel the shift in him. He looks different, not broken, but at peace. What did he say? She asks. Daniel gives a small, tired smile. Enough. Then he takes her hand and says, we've spent so long surviving everyone else's version of us. It's time we live ours. And for a while, they do. The foundation expands internationally. They travel for conferences, meet students whose lives they've changed. Every time Lily watches him speak to a crowd of young entrepreneurs, she feels proud not of the man he was born to be, but the man he chose to become. They're building something real, something no amount of money or scandal could ever erase. But destiny, as always, has one more test waiting. One evening, while they're hosting a fundraising gala, Daniel excuses himself to take a call. Minutes pass, then half an hour. Lily starts to worry. She finds him outside, leaning against a column, his face pale. What's wrong? She asks. He hesitates, eyes flickering with something she can't quite name. The doctor's called, he says slowly. It's not about my father, it's about me. The words hang in the air like a bomb waiting to go off. He explains quietly routine scans, fatigue, nothing serious at first, but the results came back abnormal. Something in his heart, stress-induced, maybe genetic. They said I need to slow down, he murmurs, looking away. But I don't know how. Lily feels her world tilt. Then I'll teach you, she says softly. You taught me how to fight. Now it's my turn. He smiles faintly, but there's fear in it, the kind of fear that doesn't fade overnight. Over the next few weeks, Daniel learns to step back. He delegates, rests, even takes therapy sessions with her. It's not easy. He's used to fixing everything, not healing from it. But slowly, something changes. They start spending mornings at a quiet beach outside the city, away from headlines, away from the noise. Lily reads. Daniel sketches something he hasn't done since childhood. One morning, she finds him staring at the horizon, eyes distant. You ever think about how everything started? He asks. You were supposed to be my tutor. That's all. She laughs softly. And you were supposed to be impossible to deal with. He smiles. Guess we both failed. They sit in silence for a long while, watching the sun crawl higher. And then, out of nowhere, he pulls something from his poquita, familiar velvet box. Her breath catches. Daniel. He opens it slowly, the same ring that once sat between them, glinting in the morning light. Last time, I gave this to you because I was desperate. Now, I'm giving it to you because I'm sure. Lily's eyes fill instantly. You don't have to do this, she whispers. He smiles. No, I get to. When he slips the ring on her finger this time, it doesn't feel like rebellion. It feels like peace finally taking shape. But just as she leans in to kiss him, a phone rings. His phone, the sound cuts through the moment like a warning bell. He checks the screen, frowns, and steps away to answer. She watches his expression shift from confusion to dread. What is it? She asks. He lowers the phone slowly, voice barely audible. It's the hospital. Her heart drops. Your father. He shakes his head. No, it's the foundation. There's been an accident. The wind picks up around them, carrying the sound of crashing waves. and suddenly the perfect morning turns cold. Daniel's jaw tightens as he listens to the details, face draining of color. They said the main office fire overnight security didn't make it. Lily's hand flies to her mouth. Oh my God. Daniel turns to her, eyes glassy, voice hollow. Everything we built, it's gone. For a long moment, they just stand there, the sound of the ocean filling the space where their dreams used to be. Then Lily takes his hand, steady and sure. No, Daniel, she says softly. We built us that's still here. He looks at her, silent, broken, but alive. And in that silence, something stronger than any empire begins to take root. But deep down, both of them know the story isn't over yet. Because what burns can be rebuilt. And sometimes, love has to prove itself twice before it becomes forever. The flames had died out hours ago, but the city still smelled of smoke. Daniel stands in front of what used to be the Graves Foundation headquarters. Blackened glass, charred steel, the faint hum of fire trucks still echoing in the background. The air tastes like loss. Lily stands beside him, silent, holding his arm as if she can keep him from falling apart. Reporters hover nearby, cameras flashing like vultures circling grief. He doesn't speak to them. He just stares at the ashes. A part of him feels like this is poetic, that every piece of his old life had to burn before something new could exist. But another part is breaking quietly, realizing how fragile even the purest dreams can be. We can rebuild, Lily whispers, her voice steady even as her eyes glisten. He turns to her slowly. We built this from nothing, and now it's nothing again. She shakes her head. No, Daniel, it's proof we can start again, because we've done it before. He looks at her for a long moment, then nods, barely. The exhaustion in his face, isn't just from the fire, it est from years of fighting to belong in worlds that were never meant to hold him. But when she takes his hand, something in him steadies. You still believe in me, he murmurs. Always have, she says, and for a second, it's enough. The investigation drags on for days. Accidents, negligence, sabotage theories flood the media, but none give closure. Daniel refuses to let the tragedy define them. Instead, he channels everything left into rebuilding, not the same way as before. Not another tower or foundation, but something smaller, raw. He rents an old library downtown and converts it into a community center for students. Free courses, mentorship programs, digital classrooms. No shareholders, he says. Just futures. Lily smiles. That's the Daniel I fell for. Weeks pass. Slowly, light replaces the smoke. The center opens, and on its first day, hundreds show up, kids who'd never have had access to this kind of opportunity. Daniel stands at the front, not in a suit this time. Just a simple shirt, sleeves rolled up, a man who's finally found peace in being ordinary. When he starts speaking, his voice doesn't sound like a billionaire or a rebel. It sounds like someone who's finally home. This began as a lesson, he says, glancing toward Lily at the back of the crowd. Someone once taught me that knowledge isn't power, it's freedom. And love isn't weakness. It's the reason you fight for something better. I lost everything to understand that. But maybe losing everything was the point. The room is silent, every face fixed on him. Then, soft applause starts from the back. Lily, smiling through tears. It spreads until the entire hall is clapping. Not for the name Graves, but for the man who let go of it. That night, after the crowd is gone and the lights are dimmed, they sit together on the steps outside the center. The city hums softly around them. "You know," Lily says, leaning her head on his shoulder, "you're still the worst student I ever had." Daniel laughs quietly. "Maybe, but I think I finally passed the test." She smiles, eyes closing. "You did." The wind carries a gentle chill. Daniel wraps an arm around her, and for a while they say nothing, just breathe. The world, for once, isn't asking for anything from them. No expectations, no headlines, no ghosts from the past. Just two people who found each other in the chaos and refused to let go. Then, just as the night begins to fade into morning, Daniel pulls something small from his pocket, a folded note, worn from being carried too long. "What's that?" Lily asks. He hesitates before handing it to her. "It's something my father wrote before he doesn't finish." She unfolds the paper carefully. In shaky handwriting, it reads, "Don't repeat my mistakes. Build something love can survive in. That's the only empire worth having." Lily looks up at him, tears soft and quiet. He finally understood. Daniel nods. "I think he did." She reaches out, touching his face gently. "Then you already won." The sky begins to lighten, soft pinks and oranges creeping over the skyline. It feels like a new beginning, but not the dramatic kind. Just honest, simple, real. Daniel stands, offering his hand. "Come on," he says. "We've got a class starting in 2 hours." She laughs, taking it. "You're seriously making me teach on our day off." He grins. "You started this. You don't get to quit now." They walk down the street hand in hand, blending into the quiet rhythm of the waking city. No cameras, no fortune. Just two people who learned that love doesn't have to be perfect to last forever. As they disappear into the morning light, the camera would linger just long enough for the audience to see the sign above the door of the new center. Engraved in simple silver letters, the Graves Learning Initiative, founded by Daniel and Lily Graves, and beneath it, smaller but clear, the words that define everything they've built. Because sometimes, love teaches you more than any lesson ever could.